And I say, write one rule on each card.
Okay.
So the kids say, you want us to tell you what the rules should be? And I say, yeah, I'd like to know what you think the rules ought to be in this classroom, because we're in this together. We're going to be here for the entire year together. So we got to get along. I need to know what you guys think. So it's a very subtle shift in power, because in most classrooms, the teacher posts the rules. So it's the kids against the teacher. It's not a joint effort. If you don't obey the rules, you're going to get sent to the office. So when the teacher gives control to the students by saying, what do you think the rules ought to be in this classroom? And they get the rules posted up on the bulletin, and the kids look at it and they say, oh, I wrote that rule. I wrote that rule. And all across the classroom, the kids see the rules that they wrote. Now, who is the teacher working for? The kids.
Yeah.
The teacher's working for the kids. Servant leadership is in place. The teacher is not self-serving. It just changes the whole relationship that occurs in that classroom, because it's a togetherness. It's a relationship. It's part of the human relations that need to occur in all businesses. The leader,
you know what? That's very funny, because that is very subtle. Like, it actually is. Now that I'm thinking about it, on day one, if they did go into the school and they just did that little thing, it probably takes maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe 20 minutes for the whole semester, the whole marking period. It just takes 20 minutes to actually give that power.
That's right.
Actually, that's interesting.
It changes the power relationship, because the teacher has to come across as servant leader. If the teacher comes across as self-serving, the kids don't trust the teacher. They aren't open with the teacher. Trust has 5 dimensions. I don't know if we want to get into that, but openness has 2 dimensions. But when the teacher uses these 2 techniques, the teacher says, I'm listening to you. I care about you. I trust you. I'm going to take this risk to find out what you think. And he says, and then when it comes back and he puts it back up there, he tells them what they said. And if there's a rule that the teacher wants that the kids did not put in there, the teacher just puts it in. They don't know. The rule that normally they don't put in is turn your homework in on time. And I just put it in, and they don't know. They and I've seen it. Who put that rule in there? Stupid idiot that put that rule in there.
And you know what else is cool is when in that way that you're talking about, when they give the rule, not only are they saying, "Oh yeah, I did that rule," but when one of the students breaks the rule, they also are probably thinking about their student, like, "Oh, John made that. Oh, you messing John's rule up." And if John's like a baseball player, or if he's like a straight A student, or he's very popular, and he gave that rule, it probably gives more strength and more power to it as well.
Absolutely. You're very astute, baby. That's really right on target. And, in every classroom, there is a kid who's out of control. Almost every classroom, there is one kid. I was one of those.
Nah.
I was 5'4" as a high school senior and weighed 125 pounds. I acted out every day. And the teachers didn't know what to do with me. And the kids waited for me to do something. I would sit in the back of the classroom and I would crack farts with my elbow. I did all kinds of things to disrupt the classroom. And the other kids supported me. Now, in this situation where the kids make the rules, they don't support the kid who's acting out because it's their rules.
Yeah.
And what I suggest in the book number 1, is when you've got one of these kids that's consistently acting out, the teacher says, okay, so-and-so, his misbehavior needs to be dealt with. What do you think? Should I send him to the office for discipline? Give me a thumbs up if you agree, thumbs down if you don't. So the kids decide the punishment. You give them control without giving it up. So if the kids give you a thumbs up, the kid who's misbehaved knows that all his peers don't like what he did or she did, and he gets sent to the office. It changes the environment in that classroom tremendously.
In seconds.
Yeah. Now, parents can do this with their own kids in many parent families, the rules are not written. They have to be understood. They have to figure them out. And many times they don't do that. So they break a rule and they get punished because they didn't know that rule was there. As a parent, I had 5 kids. I went to my 5 kids and I said, what rules do you want me to enforce in this house? And they said, what? You want us to tell you what the rules are? Yeah, I want to know what you think they ought to be. So, and I had 5 kids. So many parents out there don't have 5. They have 2 or 3. But still involving them on what the rules are in that family is important. When the rules go up, now the kids know what the rules are because they helped write them. And if the parent wants to put some rules in, they can put those rules in. Like curfews at 1 o'clock. Most kids won't say that. Or curfew is 12 o'clock. They won't say that. They don't want that curfew. So the parent puts it in. But the rules are there. When a kid does not obey the rule, the parent says, remember the rule on curfew? You didn't do it. And you just plop it right there and wait for the kid to respond. Remember, the secret to being a good parent or a leader or a teacher of any kind is to give control to people without giving it up. Because once you give it up, you've lost control. There are 9 forms of power. I don't know how much time we got. Well, there are 9 forms of power.
We have the 5 basic needs. And for, just real quick.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen.
The next basic need, you're holding me, keeping me to task, baby. Yeah. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Clete.
The next basic need is caring.
Hold on 1 second. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Clete Bulach. When he's referencing book 1, he's talking about the school climate and culture, vis-a-vis student learning. And when he's talking about book number 2, that's enhancing a high-performing school culture and climate, new insights for improving schools. We'll make sure to put the link in the show notes so you guys can see exactly what that is. And we're back to the 5 basic needs. Number 1, safe. Number 2, happiness. Number 3 is power. Number 4 is
caring. Many kids go to school believing the teacher doesn't care about them. Many kids go to school believing the other kids don't care about them. A lot of kids sometimes wonder whether their parents care about them. So caring is a basic need. And you can just ask yourself, baby, if you woke up one morning and realized that nobody cared about you, how would that make you feel?
Terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible. So knowing that people care about you is an important need. And, when the teacher says, what rules do you want me to enforce in this classroom? What do you expect of me as your teacher? The teacher is coming across as caring for the students. Those are just simple techniques that teachers need to use to come across as a servant leader, because a servant leader cares about the people underneath them. Whether you're a supervisor on an assembly line, whether you're a minister, or whether you're a parent, coming across as a servant leader, as caring for the people, is a very important need that people have. Then you move to the 5th basic need, and that's purpose. Now, Dr. Mehmet Oz, Rick Warren, the Dalai Lama, all of these people have said, life with no purpose is no life. But when I interviewed these thousands of kids, I said, why do you go to school? And they said, well, we have to. You mean if you didn't have to go, you wouldn't go? No, I don't like school. What's your reason for going? I don't have one. I just have to go. That occurs in about 50% of the kids going to school today. They have no purpose in going to school. They believe the teacher doesn't care. They are highly controlled. They have no control. They aren't happy. And some are afraid because they may be bullied. Now, how is that kid going to learn? That kid is not motivated to learn. And that's what is wrong with our schools today. The 5 basic needs are not being met. Now, in any organization, in any family, you need to ask yourself, are my kids' needs being met? And you can ask them. You can say, hey, let's talk about your needs. How safe do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10? How happy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? How are your feelings of control on a scale of 1? Do you feel like you have control of your life? Do you feel like people care about you? Do you have a purpose in life? And depending on how they rate themselves, you know what you've got to do as a parent, as a leader. If you're a therapist and you've got a client, ask those 5 basic need questions. Where are you on these 5 basic needs? And that will tell you where you need to start working. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that makes great sense. So I'm learning so much here. I also want to go back to those 9. You said something about power, power. There was 9 things, but we're student behavior, student culture, and climate was number 2. Number 3 was 5 basic needs. What was number 4?
Number 4, it was parents.
Okay.
Parents are not involved in our schools. So chapter 5 in book number 1 describes a character education program that involves parents. Now, when I went in West Virginia, the state law passed a law that every school district in the state had to have a character ed program. So when I went in there, I evaluated how their character ed program worked. And I had some schools where it worked, but the vast majority over a 4-year period. I was in there for 4 years evaluating that program. In year 2, there was an improvement in the behavior of students. In year 3, there was a regression. In year 4, they were back to where they were in number 1 because the kids and the teachers were tired of the same character thing every year. We did that last year. We've been doing this for 4 years now. I'm tired of it. And the teachers weren't doing it and the kids weren't paying attention. So what I have in chapter 5 is a program that involves the parents and the community, and it focuses on 1 character trait each year. I don't know if you have time to get into that or not. I don't know if you want to get into that. You might want to go to the 9 forms of power.
All right. Okay. So with those character traits, let's go to the 9 forms of power. But with those character traits, what are some of those character traits?
I prefer starting with courtesy. And you go to the students, the faculty, and the people, and the business people in the community, and you say, we're going to focus on courtesy for an entire year. If people were courteous to you, what would you want them to do or say? And you give them 3 3x5 cards, and you have them write 1 thing on each card. So you flesh out what courtesy looks like in Timbuktu, and you hammer it for an entire year. Then the next year, I prefer self-respect for the next year. The next year focuses on drugs, alcohol, sex, cussing. If a person has self-respect, there are certain things that they would not do. So the next year you focus on responsibility. And the next year you might focus on compassion. The next year on sympathy. There are 28 character traits. I grouped them into 16 sets of traits. That survey is on my website, and it is free.
Free! He used the F word again. We love you. We love you.
You can get on my website, BB, and look up those 16 character traits. But what it does is it focuses on 1 trait a year. So the kids don't get tired of it. but it also allows the parents to get involved because